use the term productive thinking instead of saying positive thinking because we don't always need to be thinking positive, and a lot of times it can be really hard to do that. And so what we want to try to do is build an awareness around not necessarily always thinking about replacing negative thoughts, but we want to be able to either accept negative thoughts as they are, stop them in their tracks, and or stop them and replace them with positive thinking or neutral thinking, which inevitably can be more directive during times of performance and training. So again, let's consider that we don't necessarily need to spend a lot of mental effort on getting rid of negative thoughts so much that we need to consider the idea of accepting negative thoughts as they are and reducing the amount of belief in those negative thoughts that we have and stopping them in their tracks or replacing them with neutral thinking or positive thinking, which we'll lump together in what we call productive thinking. And so how does this play out in somebody's life? Well, much like there can be specificity to somebody's training in the deadlift pattern, whether they're doing a single leg deadlift for building unilateral strength, or they're doing Romanian deadlifts to build some end range strength in their hamstrings, there can be specificity to an individual's thinking and self-talk. And so, do I tend to wake up in the morning and have negative things to say about myself in the day that is about to come? Or do I tend to fall into a trap of thinking unproductively driving up to the crag? Or do I think unproductively while I'm on the route? Or do I think unproductively after I've failed on an attempt on my project? These are all places where the self-awareness piece comes back in. The important thing is that every aspect of mental skills training and physical and technical, they all are a feedback loop to each other. And so let's not forget about this self-awareness piece. Part of that is understanding when you have unproductive thinking or negative thoughts about you yourself, your performance failures, and replacing those or stopping them in their tracks or accepting them for what they are. And so what that is going to look like is if I struggle with unproductive thinking before I get on my project, I'm going to remind myself that whatever that unproductive thought is, I'm not good enough, I haven't prepared, this is too hard, I'm not strong enough. I need to remind myself that those thoughts are not actually who I am, and I don't need to become those thoughts. And that in and of itself can be one step and finite. You can stop there, or you can move forward and think about something neutral. So what would be a neutral thought for getting rid of negative thoughts before trying to send a project? Well, you might think to yourself, to the death, or try hard, or climb smoothly. Something that is small in its statement. We don't want to be saying or thinking long sentences before points of action, because that in and of itself is a mental distraction from what is happening at the present moment. And so really reminding ourselves that unproductive thinking typically take us out of the present moment, which is how we perform at our best. And they typically take us either in the past or in the future. And so building a recognition around unproductive thinking and being able to build a habit of recognizing those thoughts early on and either stopping them in their tracks and replacing them with neutral thoughts like climb smoothly, try hard, or positive thoughts, I am prepared, I can do this, things like that. That is a much more productive way to be existing in your head than giving in or agreeing with the negative thoughts that come in during high performance, high pressure situations. One specific exercise that you can take part in that both builds a self-awareness of the way that you think and talk to yourself, and builds an ability to make change to those statements, is for 3 days in a row, use your phone or walk around with a notebook or take notes on your computer. But for 3 days, while you're awake all day long, every time that you think about something negative associated with yourself, some kind of negative statement that you make to yourself or about a situation, about a failure of the day, write it down and take note of that. And then after those 3 days, don't forget about the things that you wrote down. Reflect on them and be curious as to how you can go about making change to the things that you're saying, and build an awareness around when those statements come into your frame of mind and how you're going to go about stopping them where they are, accepting them as they are, and moving forward in a productive way. The last foundational aspect to mental skills is having an understanding of self-confidence. And here we're talking about your confidence in your climbing, your confidence in your ability to train effectively, your confidence in your ability to build your own training program or execute a climbing day. Anything along those lines facilitates and builds your confidence or your self-efficacy in rock climbing. And what we want to do is, much like the previous 3 skills, build an awareness around the activities or actions that you take part in to help bolster the confidence that you have in the sport. And so if I have somebody who has low confidence in themselves in climbing or rope climbing, what do we do about that? Well, develop a habit of excellence at the cliff. And so that would mean building skills and drills and sessions that revolve around success. And so success isn't the only thing that drives confidence, but it is helpful in creating a confident state in an individual. And we spend a lot of time talking about the second tier. And really what's important about second tier routes, so these would be routes or boulders that are a bit below your top end. Say something that might take you 2, 3, up to 5 or 6 tries, something that you really have to work hard on, but the act of succeeding is built into the process. And so what we're trying to do is cultivate an experience where you're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone to a place that is challenging, that you feel that feels unsafe but is actually relatively safe. And when we do that over and over, we build an awareness of ourselves to succeed, which facilitates an ability to be confident in oneself in a particular activity. Here we're talking about rock climbing. And so to go back to it, we want to be thinking about engaging in a process that is both inherently challenging and feels unsafe, but is actually relatively safe for you. And so we talk a lot about that in the second tier range. And again, that builds this habit of, and an identity around, I am an individual who can work hard and persist and succeed. And this creates an identity and an awareness around my self-confidence as an athlete. So when you're considering developing the mental side of your game or improving your mental skills, let's make sure that we're starting with the fundamentals, starting with the foundation, and remembering that those are our motivation, our self-awareness, our productive thinking that we have, and the confidence that we have in ourselves in our rock climbing, and recognizing that all of those things play a role in each other, and it's a reciprocal relationship between all four of those foundational facets. And once we can really hammer on those and be consistent in our progression of them and our addressing them, we can then start to bolster them by bringing in other mental skills and things that will be able to facilitate the development of those foundational skills. And so in the future, we're going to talk at length about goal setting and imagery, a little bit more self-talk. We can bring in mindfulness meditation, any number of those psychological skills training aspects. But for right now, we just want to have you focus on the four foundational aspects.